Well, it is final, and we are live. Raise your voice, coming to you right after a series win over the New York Yankees in nail-biting fashion. The Rays that win this game 5-4, and we've got a very special episode of D-Rays Bay tonight. I am not joined by Darby Robinson, as you can see if you're watching live on youtube.com/raise your voice or on X from the D-Rays Bay account. I am joined by Ian Malinowski and Danny Russell. And we were trying to decipher what was going on at the end of this game. Jose Caballero, though, makes the catch. It is confirmed by replay review. And the Rays have won the game and the series. It was an exciting one. Ian, first off, man, glad to have you back on the show. It's been way too long. But secondly, how are you feeling after a huge series victory over the Bronx Bombers?
I feel almost as good as I would have felt had it been the sweep that it almost was. Not quite as good, but good enough.
And Danny, I mean, you weren't even watching the game. We're having to kind of fill you in as you hopped on StreamYard.
I can't explain why my video stream was not working. I was blacked out, and it was MLB TV's free game of the week. I cannot understand what happened. So I was actually watching the replay of the Caballero catch that he then transferred to his other hand on your TV behind you, squinting and looking up close to the screen. Amazing. Why? Very important question. Why is it only when the Yankees come to Tropicana Field that the weirdest stuff happens? Game one,
it does.
Walls is hit by a pitch, or not hit by a batted ball, and he's out, and that potentially impacts the entire game. The second game, you have historic lack of run scoring despite the number of hits. People are comparing it to a one-off game from the 1965 Tigers to try to find a similar occurrence where
who is
that many
comparing
hits.
it to that?
People are saying
it. Great. Always so many people on X. And then today, I mean, it couldn't have gotten weirder than that final ending right there. So
it was weird throughout, and we've got plenty of news to talk about. But since we're live and we just had experienced, one of the craziest games, one of the best wins, I think, of the season. Pete Fairbanks comes in to get the save. It started off wacky. Within 4 pitches, the Yankees had 2 men on in scoring position with nobody out in the first inning. Shane Baz, gets out of that. Yandy Diaz appears to hit a catwalk. Trent Grisham, who's a 2-time Gold Glove winner, seems to be tracking this ball all the way back to the wall, and then it lands 50 feet from him. Kevin Cash
only when the Yankees are in town.
Yeah, weird stuff. They called it a double, but it didn't matter because Randy Arozarena sent one into the left field seats right after that. A crazy game and a weird series, and I think the Rays, like Ian said, man, maybe they should have swept, but they're also kind of lucky to walk out of this series with a series victory. So I guess we'll take it. And
I have a couple notes from this game that I want to talk about, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wrote down on my little pad here, Jason Adam All-Star ?
He might be on the list of replacements as we get closer.
I mean, he needs to be on the list. There needs to be a short list. If Kittredge is an all-star, Jason Adam is an all-star.
Is Kittredge an all-star this year?
That was just a big boy performance for him. No, I just mean ever.
Yeah. I thought Adam got picked last year.
If he's listening.
I don't know if Kittredge is listening.
Considering his performance this year and the way that Kittredge was a late addition as a reliever, just the quality of performance that he's been putting together, if you're going to need any pitching replacements, I really hope that Adam gets the call. He needs to find himself in a Rainforest Cafe at Disney World pronto.
That's right. And Adam, it's I feel like with some of these replacements, there's some more that goes into it than just your performance this season. In what he's done the last 3 seasons with the Rays has been pretty incredible. The way he's turned his career around after bouncing around from a few teams, he's really found his spot as the Rays' 8th inning guy, although had to use him earlier in tonight's game. And I thought tonight's game was masterfully managed by Kevin Cash. The right moment to pull Shane Baz, I like the pinch hit Ben Wortved for Alex Jackson. I know you don't have to be a genius to think that that was a good move there. And then how he used Jason
Come on,
Adam and
T-Crass.
Colin Poche and Manuel Rodriguez, and then ultimately that set it up for Fairbanks in the ninth. I thought Kevin Cash managed this like a postseason game, and that was really fun to see as we get closer to July 30th and we're wondering who's next to be traded.
Yep. I'll play devil's advocate on Jason Adam for a second, though. So reliever with a 1.82 ERA, but also across 40 innings, we don't really care about ERA that much when talking about how good relievers are, do we? He has a 4.04 xFIP. This would be, by his standards, the worst season Jason Adam has had by xFIP since he joined the Cubs. Are we concerned that Jason Adam is a just like an ERA mirage here?
I thought Jason Adam had a strong enough month of June
I think
that he's trending in the right direction, and I'm not too worried about him. I mean, 32.6% strikeout rate in the month of June, and obviously, not enough innings in July to draw any reasonable conclusion. So I felt that way about Jason Adam earlier in the season, but I think in the last couple months he's been pretty lights out.
Yeah, okay. I won't play devil's advocate too hard. I think.
No,
Jason
you're welcome
Adam's great.
to.
I mean,
I think Jason Adam's great. I also, you could trade him, and I wouldn't be hurt. My feelings would not be hurt if we traded Jason Adam like tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting with him that so last year he sort of ditched his slider and he added a sweeper that was like apparently sort of by accident. He came into spring not being able to throw a slider. It was sweeping instead, and the Rays said, you know what? Let's just lean into it. Let's make it sweep more, and it became this like crazy big sweeper with huge horizontal movement, one of the largest ones in all of baseball. This year he came back in and he still has that sweeper, but he also added back like a better bullet gyro slider than he had previously. So like from the like scouting perspective, I really like the Jason Adam of this year more than I like the Jason Adam of last year even. And like even just this game, the way he got Aaron Judge out there, it was fastball, then change up outside, and then a couple sweepers, and then he got him swinging on the first bullet slider that he ever threw him, and this like mixing of two different slider shapes is like a tool Jason Adam hasn't had before, and it's really fun watching him play with that new tool now.
Yeah, and I mean, it just again the at bat against Soto, where he struck him out on 3 straight changeups, low and away that Judge swung and looked like he kind of hurt himself on one of those pitches. And I thought maybe the Yankees might retaliate the next inning for Jason Adam hurting Juan Soto. But I thought it was bold. I liked the move to leave Adam back out there to face Judge. That was the at bat Ian was just talking about. And then going to Poche again was just really happy with the bullpen and how it was managed tonight. Jared asks, was Boz pulled too early? I think Boz was pulled at the right time. I think, again, you always want to pull a pitcher before they give up the big hit, not after. It just felt like third time through, going into the meat of that order again, there was a lot that could have gone wrong for Shane Baz, and I'd rather him end his night with, if we went 4 1/3, had the 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up a home run to Juan Soto. The Yankees had been hitting him really hard too. I don't know if you guys saw anything different, but it did feel like that was the right time to get Boz out of there.
A lot of this is about building confidence. You want to talk about great manager. There's 2 different moments where I thought that Cash was managing a young pitcher well in this game, and that was one of them. The other one that I wrote down on my little notepad to talk about tonight was Manny Rodriguez coming in. And Ian, you and I were going back and forth in the Slack before this about that decision. I really liked bringing Manny in because you want confidence boosters for these young guys. If you think these Rays are going to be competitive in the near term, in particular, you need to put your relievers in high leverage situations to give them those opportunities. And on the flip side, you want to pull Boz before he gets rocked. And if you think, this is a good confidence booster moment to take him out against a decent Yankees team, I know that they're kind of like on a skid, but still intimidating players to face. Then you want to do everything that you can to make your pitchers felt like they had success, especially these young guys. And Manny, we had 2 men on and 2 out in the 8th. You could have brought in Fairbanks reasonably and just asked him to get 4 outs. I do think that is a justifiable decision. Just bring in the closer now, and let's shut this down with a 2-run lead. But bringing Manny in, especially coming off of his Durham performance, where he had like a 1.09 ERA, I think. Yes, and I'm using ERA for a reliever, but he was the results speak for themselves. That he was killing it in Durham, and you call him up and you want him to, have confidence in himself. And that first batter, you even saw he was lacking confidence. He wasn't attacking the zone. He was throwing down and away at 98 miles an hour. Stop that. Just throw it down the middle and trust your stuff. Is I'm sure what Kyle Snyder said to him when he walked to the mound after that walk. And he did. He trusted himself, and he got the result that he needed. So I liked giving Manny the opportunity there. And then if the Rays just added a whole bunch of runs on, then you're not stuck with having already burned Fairbanks if for some reason the game had turned into like a 5-run lead or something absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I
One more.
also
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I also in the end I came around. I liked it as well because they were giving Manny that high leverage opportunity, and like if part of the reason that you trade Phil Maton is you think that Manuel Rodriguez might be better right now. Like that's a possibility. I'm not sure he's better. He might be, he might not, but like you have to trust him in this type of situation. The other thing is they were putting him in the high leverage, not facing the top of the Yankees order. It was set up so that he would get the bottom part of the order. Fairbanks was always going to have Soto, Judge in the 9th potentially. So like it's a confidence builder. It's not the most difficult situation that you could have put him in.
Was Fairbanks warming in the 8th? Does anyone know, like, if they needed to get to him in a tie,
he was
in a
not.
one-run or a tie game?
Yeah, it didn't appear.
Gotcha. One more note on Shane Baz. Like, there was 8 batted balls over 100 miles an hour against him. He leaned on his fastball heavily that first time through the order, which is great because it's a great fastball, and he touched 99 with it a couple of times, I think. But as he still needs to cut his teeth in the big leagues, when you're facing a lineup that has 2 Hall of Fame level hitters in it, it's difficult to turn them over 3 times, especially when he was leaning on that fastball, and it got hit hard a lot the second time through. So Yandy Diaz, not only did he have the double that should have been a home run, 117 mile an hour exit velocity on a double to left field that lasered over the wall after landing just fair. I know it was a slower start for Yandy, but there's sometimes I've watched his at bats in the last month, and it feels like he has taken another step up from last year when he won the American League batting title. Am I crazy for thinking maybe he's unlocking something else here?
I don't know if there's anything else to unlock, but I think he's reaching that again. He, as we saw today, he can still hit the ball extremely hard. His play discipline is still good. I think he hasn't worked walks as well this year as he had in past years, and like that happens. I don't care that much. I think he is rounding into excellent form. I think he's an elite hitter, and that we're privileged to watch a hitter like this. There aren't a lot of hitters in baseball that are this combination of bat to ball skills, swing speed, power. It's just overall an elite hitter who sometimes hits the ball on the ground too much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
And Yandy got a bad rep for struggling in March and April. But if you remove March and April, he probably has like a 130 WRC plus or something absurd.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
he's had a
Aaron
very good
Judge
year.
struggled in March and April, and now he's back on pace for having like another historic season. So yeah, maybe don't read too much.
Yeah, I
into March
think
and
he's
April.
on track to break the Yankees record for home runs in the first half or something like that. If he gets like one
Yeah.
more before the All-Star
Yeah.
break.
He's having, I mean, matching, pretty much a lot of the same numbers from his.
And he has the
2022
previous
season.
record, I think.
Yeah, no, he does.
If you
so-
remove March and April from Yanni's line, he has a 127 WRC plus, so 27% above average.
Get behind me, boys! Come on, that was a guess.
There you go.
It's perfect.
Let's move on to the trades. There's been 2 trades since Darby and I last recorded. The first was Aaron Civale being sent to the Milwaukee Brewers for an infield prospect by the name of Gregory Barrios. And were either of you shocked to see Civale traded? Not to see him traded, but to see him traded when he was traded.
No, I think that it was clear that the Rays were going to trade a starting pitcher because space had to be made for Boz. The future is Boz. We have to play him. He has to work it out here in the majors.
Mm-hmm.
And the only question was which one. I think Civale was the most likely one, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it was Eflin or Littell but I think it was the most likely one was Civale, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think you still could see the Rays also trade Eflin and Littell, and I would not be surprised either. I think the Rays are deep from a rotation perspective in terms of bodies, and it's a lot of young guns that you need to get out there and get the opportunities. And so Civale being the first domino is really just more of a matter of the Brewers having a need and being willing to make a move now at a price the Rays thought was reasonable.
Yeah.
Do you think that someone else has to be traded this year when Springs comes back, or do you think that the Rays might coast with an extra starter, assuming everyone else stays healthy and Springs comes back okay?
Yeah, that's a good question. You have to assume that everyone else is healthy, and I think that's a big assumption. But I mean, Bradley's a dude, and he's been cruising. If Boz is successful and Bradley's successful, and Pepio's not slowing down, and you don't want to even give him like a phantom IL stint just to like take some miles off the arm or something like that, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to still move things around and just have 6 guys. And but I think Eflin is a prime candidate to move. I've been anticipating Eflin to move at the end of the season because that's when his backloaded contract suddenly jumps up in terms of dollars that he's going to be owed. But if the Rays can turn Eflin into a high leverage trade deadline, sort of squeeze some extra juice out of the orange and get more value out of him than they otherwise might at the end of the season, I think it's a great time to move on from Eflin.
Eflin is the one I'm expecting, and I also think he'll have at least 2 more starts before the deadline. He's been pitching better as of late. If he has 1 or 2 more strong starts, I could see the market really building up for Zach Eflin. And the Rays might be determined the time is now to move him anyways. But if that market continues to build up, I think that could actually be a pretty decent return. This is a guy that has had almost no arm injuries. He's dealt with back issues before, but the bill of health on his arm is pretty clean. And so I think there's a lot of value there for teams that are maybe more entrenched in the postseason race and not on the outside looking in like the Rays are now. Littell is the other one. Obviously, none of the other guys are really on the trade block, but never say never with the Rays. Ian, to answer your question, no, I don't think there's pressure anymore. I think, like Danny said, there's ways to work it out. I think Boz, they're going to really manage him carefully, as they will with Springs, as they will with Bradley, as they will with Pepio, because if the idea is this isn't our year, those are the guys that you need to come back for next year healthy, ready to go when you add McClanahan and we still have Drew Rasmussen. But with that being said, I think you can trade Eflin if you're going for it, and you can trade Eflin if you're punting on the rest of the season. And that's why I don't think whatever moves are made, we'll really know what the Rays think, and they'll just keep chugging along. Any other thoughts on this on the Civale trade?
I mean, it's one of those. It's been a really interesting ride with Civale, because he'll have now been a player who has pitched for Cleveland, for Tampa Bay, for Milwaukee, who are three of the like genuinely acknowledged pitching factories, teams that know how to develop pitchers, know how to tweak pitchers. They're smart teams. I think they all operate a little bit differently. Civale is someone who promises a lot on the one hand, and also like has some real liabilities to his game on the other hand. And so like it's a real puzzle picture, and I can see why everyone who thinks they can solve puzzle pictures wants to try their luck on Civale. I don't think the Rays quite did it, but like this year he's having a straight up James Shields 2010 year. Like this is a pitcher who like under the hood there's a lot that you like, but he's not stranding runners. He's giving up homers. Everything on the like top level that can go wrong is. And the real puzzle with him is that like he has a four-seam fastball that can't survive on the major league level. He has it's like its movement is fine, its speed is fine, it has really poor extension. So like he can't live on that. He can't throw it for strikes in hitters counts. On the other hand, he has a huge, very good curve. And this year he added a sweeper that was immediately, I'll say this, the best sweeper in all of baseball thrown by a starting pitcher. It's a legitimately great pitch. That best is based on its stuff plus rating, which is like 62% above average this year. That sweeper, like that curveball, it's a big break though. So it's difficult to throw for strikes. It's difficult to disguise. There isn't a lot of like there's a lot of trickery in where it's going to be because of its movement. There's not a lot of trickery of when you see it coming, because it's this huge break. With his fastball that he can't land for strikes, that really narrows down the way that he can build those counts, can shield his other pitches, can not overexpose them. I talked about this being a Shields 2010. The problem with pitchers who are having that kind of year is that the bad ERA stuff is a little bit sticky in season. Like you want to bet on that guy. Just say it'll work out. It'll regress. It's less apt to regress in season. It's more apt to regress the following year. So like I would bet on Milwaukee having a good time with Civale next year. I've lost some amount of my confidence. I'll admit it in him bouncing back right now.
Yeah. And again, I mean, the other alternative would have been to move either Littell or Civale to the bullpen. I think the Rays continue to really like Littell. So maybe they just want him to stay a starter for now, at least. And Civale, I also wonder if there was an air of like mutual respect with, hey, we brought you in as a starter. It didn't work out. We're going to, go ahead and just find another home for you. And, the Rays
can I push back on it didn't work out a little bit? I mean,
please.
What the Rays needed at the time was an innings eater, and what the Brewers are looking for is an innings eater.
No,
like
the trade for Civale at the time. The trade. No, I'm not going after the trade for Civale at the time. It was the same thing the Rays needed last year. They needed innings. They needed a starting pitcher, and they paid up to get one with Kyle Manzardo. And again,
Well,
I'm
take
not
a
losing too
step back.
much
I
sleep
want to do
over a
this.
first
I
base
want to do this.
prospect.
Kyle Manzardo. A lot of people were worked up about trading Kyle Manzardo. Number one, you should not be worked up about trading a first baseman unless he is a true, legit prospect.
Right.
And Manzardo did not
Xavier
have
Isaac.
legit prospect labels on him like Xavier Isaac does, right? So Kyle Manzardo is interesting, but he's borderline quad A. We don't really know if he's a major leaguer or not. You can bet on those guys. He was a second round draft pick. He's even got pedigree in that way. But if I told you a year ago at the trade deadline, you're going to trade Kyle Manzardo, and what you're going to get back is a year of a starting pitcher who can, shoulder a ton of innings, throws the best slider in baseball for 1 year, and you're also going to get a prospect that's basically another Adrian Santana, who was a
Yeah.
Rays first-round draft pick. You take that every time. Turning a first baseman who looks like a quad A prospect into a year of Civale and Adrian Santana 1 year older, which is literally the situation we're looking at. If you don't remember who Adrian Santana is, you can be forgiven. He is a phenomenal shortstop prospect, great first step, and great range, great defender. I don't know if he's ever going to add power, but you take that bet every single time, and that's worth a first round draft pick at a high school. And now that kid is 19 and he's at low A. Well, now they just picked up another shortstop who's 20 and goes to high A, but he's got the exact same profile. Like, this was a brilliant set of two moves, and I do that every single time if I'm the Rays.
I think that the Rays thought that they were trading for better than a 5 ERA, and I think that the Brewers think they are trading for better than a 5 ERA. It's
Well,
like
the value on that trade shows that both sides think he's better than a 5 ERA because the Rays wouldn't have asked for something that expensive. I think it's a pretty good value.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go after the value of the Aaron Civales of the world on big league rotations. They are important for teams that are competing for the postseason. And he had another good outing today against Pittsburgh. I thought maybe Pittsburgh would hit him a little bit better after just seeing him a week and a half ago. But he once again went toe to toe with Paul Skeens, and Paul Skeens had to throw 7 no-hit innings to outduel Aaron Civale today. So. Good for him, and yeah, I think the trade worked out for both teams with Cleveland, and I think it'll be kind of not a wash. I don't know if Gregory Barrios will ever play for the Rays in the big leagues, but he might be part of another interesting trade. So I want to move on to the next trade, Phil Maton, who the Rays brought in on a $7 million deal with I think an option for an extra year after that. Was the only
like that.
was one of the bigger was the biggest free agent signing for the Rays this past offseason. And they do what they always do when they bring in a pitcher or a relief pitcher on a bigger contract, or any pitcher on a bigger contract, and halfway through the season they're ready to move on and they just send him to the Mets. They did it with Rich Hill, they did it with Brooks Raley, and now they're doing it with Phil Maton. I mean, Maton's another guy. I don't know. I think there's more in there. I hope for his sake he figures it out with the Mets, but it looked like he got worse. This is from when he was with the Astros to this year with the Rays. Ian will probably tell me why I'm wrong. And why
I don't understand Phil Maton. I think that the like my only observation there is that it's like there's there's a certain type of pitcher who throws all bendy stuff, goes away from his fastball, has multiple good breaking balls, and those guys can be extremely good. I think that it's maybe hard to live that life with everything under 90 miles per hour. And I almost wonder, based on the past few years, if the Rays have internally sort of over expected what can be wrung out of this particular profile, because they've chased it a couple times and it hasn't quite worked out. At the same time, Phil Maton has been a good pitcher before. He's like, I don't understand why he's always getting hit these days.
I mean, it's not like it never works, Ian. It works with Charlie Morton. I know that's not a reliever, but it's a similar
Colin McHugh.
story.
Yeah, I feel like they are chasing Colin McHugh the past couple of years, and Colin McHugh was awesome, and
That's fair.
David Robertson also awesome. David Robertson, Daniel Robertson,
We've had them
the
both.
basketball
It was
player.
David Robertson, Daniel Hudson.
Yes.
We had Daniel
Hudson,
Robertson too.
A great reliever who never pitched for the Rays because it couldn't work out, and then he's like closing for the Dodgers or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Won
like
a World Series with the Nationals.
There it is.
Like there have been some good ones in that profile. There have been others that just haven't worked out, and that's what the Mets are for.
That's what the Mets are for.
Said the man who lives in New York City. I don't know why Maton's primary pitch moved off of being his breaking ball this year with the Rays. Oh wait, I lost connection for a hot sec. Am I back?
You sounded clear. You're good. Keep it rolling. You just keep rolling with your thought.
I'm so sorry about that. To me, now I'm no pitching expert, but I thought that the Rays were bringing in a guy who threw his loopy stuff as his primary pitch. Then when I look back at his Rays career, I don't remember that being his profile anymore. And so I actually was like going in StatCast and I was like toggling back and forth. I was like, what did the Rays do to this guy? Was it his own decision making that he kind of mixed up the pitch mix, or were the Rays encouraging him to do this? It does seem like a philosophical difference.
I mean, I actually see the pitch mix as being pretty similar to last year. I don't actually see where it has changed a ton. Like sort of this, there's some funniness in the classifications between four seam
so maybe that's it.
And cutter, but I don't think he's doing anything different. I think this is kind of a pitch classification issue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think he is locating worse, and like some of this is a reminder that like 90% of the trick of being a baseball pitcher is to like throw an overhand pitch that does ridiculous things in a repeatable way and like hit a small target, and like sometimes for 20 innings you just like don't replicate your pitches as well.
And with Maton, it like just based on StatCast, right? And so we can talk about classification issues. Like it was picking up him throwing a slider 7% of the time, a pitch that he hasn't thrown according to StatCast since 2021. And so we had they're classifying as 3 different breaking balls: the curveball, the sweeper, and the slider. And
they could all be the same pitch.
Yeah. That slider's new. You're right there. It's a small percentage, but that's the thing he mostly hasn't thrown last year.
And it could be, just how it comes off of his fingers. There's also, some more popular thinking in pitching circles now that like really good pitchers will throw 3 different types of fastballs. And I almost wonder if the Rays took Maton and said, let's try to throw 3 different types of breaking balls that look different and do different things.
The Chris Archer approach?
And yeah, maybe they were experimenting with that in real time and the results didn't look too good. I don't know. That's a guess. Any other thoughts on Maton?
Whatever it was, it didn't work. It didn't work.
And so we sent him to the Mets. That's what the Mets are for. I want to cover
and you give an opportunity to Manny Rodriguez, who is, killing the game.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. I do think the Rays could use like a swingman, and maybe that's just Armstrong now or Kevin Kelly. I don't know, but like maybe I wish we had someone that maybe they could get 3 innings every once in a while, especially if you're trying to watch.
That's Armstrong. That's Armstrong. I wish Armstrong were pitching better.
Yeah,
that's also potentially Springs,
or Rasmussen.
Yes.
So they've got options. I think even if they do, to bring it back to the start of this conversation, trade further starting pitchers. We're going to cover the Wander Franco news just a little bit, but before we get to that, Evan Longoria is returning to Tropicana Field this weekend to do an autograph signing. And I don't know about you guys, but this feels really strange. So he hasn't officially retired. you'd like to imagine when he does do that, he'll come back to the Trop for some sort of ceremony. But that's not this Saturday. This Saturday, he's just signing autographs in the team store. You got nothing, Danny? Or maybe you do have something.
I don't know. It is weird. It is a little weird. It's not official, but James Shields also showed up and did all his pomp and circumstance. It hadn't officially retired either. So,
and as awesome as James Shields was, this is the greatest player in your franchise's history.
How dare you say that to James Shields?
I don't know. Something about
Sorry,
it.
I'm a James Shields stan. It's never gonna end.
I mean, yeah. So I work in the nonprofit field. So we have a large amount of staff whose job it is to cultivate relationships with rich people, and you get them in the door, and you get them in the door for any reason, and you make sure they have a good time, and then you ask them for more money later. So like, I think this is like, we're talking to Evan Longoria. Hey, how you doing? Like, you figure out how to get him in that door, sign some autographs. Maybe at the end of the season, he'll come back. He'll say, that was so fun. I love Tropicana Field. I love the Bay Republic store there. Let me come back. Let me retire Array. I don't think I would read that much more into it. And that like, someone is working on this relationship, and we got him to do this thing.
That's a very fair point. And I don't like, part of me thought, well, maybe this is like a surprise ceremony, but if Evan Longoria was going to be retiring as a Ray on Saturday, they would be marketing the hell out of that, and they would be going for a sellout,
sure.
and they could probably get it. And I imagine the crowd will be good. I don't know what that line's going to look like. There's no way he's going to. I mean, I don't know how many people they're going to let in line, because I imagine it's his first time back at the Trop in a baseball capacity since 2017, right? He never came here as a visitor.
Part of it is it maybe just he's tired of getting stopped in Target trying to do his shopping, and it's like, man, maybe I should just give out some autographs all at once so I can stop doing this.
He was at the Trop for the Christmas
putzing around St. Pete.
Enchanted, the Christmas lights show. He did go to that in the off season.
Yeah, right.
He's always lingering around just enough to make you think like, oh, what's Evan up to?
I mean, I who would I cut on the Rays roster right now to put Longo back on the team? Let me pull up the Rays roster.
I'd be hard pressed to let any of these guys go, because there are no at bats available for Evan, unless you just want him on the bench.
Yeah, let's trade Ahmed Rosario and just sign Longo to play through the rest of the year. Would anyone hate that?
Junior Caminero might.
Junior Caminero can't walk right now.
He's on his way back. He just homered down in Port Charlotte, or in the Complex League. So,
good for him.
Let's get to the Wander Franco news. He was formally charged in the Dominican Republic earlier this week for sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, and human trafficking. So very serious charges. And what we now know is that, well, we learned that the Rays actually were not paying him his full salary this year. They had reached a settlement for what he was going to be paid this year, and now they're not paying him anything for the remainder of the season after these charges were handed down. Were you guys, I mean, his salary wasn't too big this year, but did you guys think that was possible, that the Rays would be, they're not off the hook of his contract yet, but for the time being, they're not paying him his salary? Is that something you guys thought was possible?
Sure. Yes, absolutely possible. And what you needed was the legal process to continue and to move forward. It's really interesting how little we can like trust news and how much we know on all this situation. Because even like the best journalistic sources by Dominican Republic standards might be considered like tabloid sources in the US. And I don't mean that dismissively. I'm just trying to like power rank levels of trustworthiness and, what we can understand from afar. With that said, there's been some pretty strong reporting throughout the Wander Franco case that's proven to be correct and has not been challenged or has not proven to be false thus far on elements of the case or what date something is supposed to happen or what expectation we should have. And so I think that's a credit to the journalists who are working on this in the Dominican. Also, it's potentially one of the biggest stories that's going to hit the Dominican, this year, if not the biggest news story, given the show that they're making out of it. Um, so the legal process was always the big hurdle. The For the Rays not to pay him, I hate starting there in terms of conversation, but we should finish it because you asked the question, and then I'll explain myself. Yeah, that's the hope. You need to get out of this contract. That contract needs to be null and void. And I don't know if the contract has a character clause in it or not. I would like to think that there's something to that effect. It's never been utilized as a clause, as far as I know, in terms of like what's publicly available between MLB and the MLB Players Association. If that character clause is in the contract, I don't know of one being exercised to terminate a contract unless that's how the Pirates got out of paying Felipe Vasquez. No, it's not.
No.
It's not. Ian, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, it was they got out of it because he was unable to
He was deported.
report. Yes.
Yeah,
He was jailed, he was deported, he was unable to appear on a baseball field and satisfy his side of the contract. So like that whole issue of activating the character clause and whether or not the Players Association would fight that was not broached there. I think it's most likely that isn't broached here either. That like as part of there's the Dominican legal process, and there's the question of whether the U.S. State Department will issue Wander a visa to continue working in the United States, and that's the cleanest contract out without any of the parties, MLB, Wanderers Camp, the Players Association, having to actually engage with what should they do morally in a situation like this.
Yeah. Danny, though, I do want to kind of, take a step back and talk about this from a wider lens, look at this situation. Incredibly sad for the victim here, and we're gonna, I guess, see this play out in court. Although there's still a cloud of uncertainty as to what's going to happen to Warner, what's going to happen with this case. But what are your thoughts on everything that's gone on?
I hate talking about this so much. I'm so sad for the situation and the victim in particular. As a parent, I can't imagine this situation unfolding in my life or anyone that I know. It's incredibly sad. These are obviously crimes, and I'm eager for the legal process to play out because I want it out of sight and out of mind. And I feel terrible that that's an option for me, because there's so many people that's not an option for them. You can just like move on from something like as terrible as these crimes are. So I'm grateful that a legal process is playing out and that there is a level of accountability that's occurring. I want to explain myself earlier. I hate that the conversation about Wander Franco frequently starts with how little money can the Rays pay him. It bugs the mess out of me for multiple reasons. Number one, that's not the most important thing happening here. Yeah, yes, he should not be paid. Agreed. Right, but that's not my primary focus when I think about the Wander Franco story. My first gut response is this is a horrible crime and he needs to be held accountable for his crimes. And I feel like that's where our focus needs to be. And everything that comes after that, like unfortunately he won't be able to play for the Rays anymore. He should never play for the Rays anymore, even if the case is dismissed. And hopefully the Players Association backs that up, because it's a stain on the game for an individual like this to ever take a baseball field. But like how soon can the Rays get out of this contract is important, but is not the most important thing.
No, you're right.
And that's not a dig at you, Brett. Part of this is also we've been talking about this and thinking about this for a year now. And so it's easy and natural. And like when the news is coming out, like a settlement was reached, I understand that was one of the most recent pieces of news, and it becomes a starting point for the conversation. But it's also a little triggering for me too, because so often the conversation online or in the news is, how much money will he be paid? And it's just like, man, you've missed it.
Yeah. And part of it is, when that contract is null and void, what does become null and void, that is, that severs all ties with Wander Franco and the Rays. And I think that's the point that I want to get to. And I hope it doesn't take too long, but it sounds like we're talking about, we're definitely talking about months, if not years, before this is fully resolved. But yeah, overall, sad situation. But some of the most news we've gotten about it, it's like you said, Danny, there's been some questions about which reporting is trustworthy, although I think there have been some really good reporters working on this story. But for so long, we heard
some of it's sensationalist, like some of the reporting and also some of the actions on behalf of the government and the judicial system have been a show.
And that is something that is definitely not unique to the Dominican Republic. I mean, we've seen that play out in the United States over and over.
Like weird things like the police going to every single family member's house, quote unquote, looking for Wander Franco in order to serve him something, and he was at his parents' house. Like, why are we going down that road? What is the point of that? You're putting on a show. Putting all the documents associated in the case in, like a plastic bin you can get at Costco, and then having 4 people carry it like it's the Ark of the Covenant down a hallway in front of the media with the guards around it, as if like, it's the ballots from the 2000 election being sent to like that Miami hotel conference room for them to look for hanging chads. Like, what are these documents, and what is this show being put on by the police? Like, it is sensationalist, and that part of it makes me feel weird. And so that's the stuff that makes me wonder, like, how much of this is trustworthy and how much of this is a show. But it's very clear that the crimes have been levied as actual charges, and the various reporting that has come out on it thus far, and also the social media posts that were posted by the victim, do seem warranted enough to have a case brought in a legitimate legal system. So that's the important validation that we needed to move Wander onto the restricted list, and that was the important validation we needed to have confidence that a legal process is playing out.
Yeah. I do want to finish the show on a happier note, more positive note. Isaac Paredes was named an American League All-Star for the first time in his career. The Rays' only representative so far. Maybe Jason Adams.
Come on down, Jason Adams.
He's waiting by the phone at the hostess stand at the Rainforest Cafe.
Next to an animatronic gorilla and a fish tank.
But Isaac Paredes, the Rays acquired him in a trade, or they sent Austin Meadows. The time it was maybe a controversial trade to some, but the Rays clearly knew what they were getting. Pull hitting, power hitting, third baseman that was chosen as a reserve on the American League All-Star team. Ian, I'll throw it to you.
Did the Rays know what they were getting? I want to hear Ian's thoughts. Is this what the Rays thought they were getting when they traded for Isaac Paredes?
And did you think this is what the Rays were getting, Ian, when they acquired Paredes?
I mean, no, in a way, because what Paredes is such a completely unique player that anyone who thought this would be totally crazy. I do think that the Rays, I don't know what the Rays thought, but I think that a reasonable person could look at his minor league record and the scouting characteristics and say that this is a person with a chance to be an impact major league hitter almost immediately. He has an elite strike zone judgment. He has elite contact ability. His ability to make contact on pitches in the zone is in the top whatever. It's hard to. I have trouble just listing that as a number, because there's a relationship between contact and power, and he's above the curve in the contact power, um, in the contact power gradient. But then on top of that, the fact that he's found home run power without bat speed or exit velocity is this like weird tick, that one weird trick that takes 20% above average player hitter to a 40%
Hitting
above
coaches
average
hate
hitter.
him.
Yeah, I mean the Detroit Tigers hitting coach definitely hates him. And like I don't know that this is a replicable skill, because there's no one else replicating. If it
Right.
was the one weird trick, there'd be a lot more players. But just the fact that it's stacked on top of a base really good solid hitter, makes him this singular player that I hope is with the Rays for a pretty long time. I'm glad. I know there was chatter this offseason. I'm glad he's not playing for Seattle right now.
Yeah.
Seattle,
Well,
which by the way has a longer left field porch. I don't know that he would be doing this in Seattle.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
where
if you're
right-handed
looking,
power
yeah,
hitters go to die. I'm glad he's with us too.
if you're looking to trade or consider trade candidates for Paredes, you're looking for what left field porch is as short as possible, and then just filtering on the park dimensions, and then going, oh no, we can't send him to Boston. It would not surprise me to see Paredes traded pronto. In the same way that like he's not something that you cook up, you don't expect, you don't bet on. If I'm the Rays, I'm sitting there and asking, is Isaac Paredes replicable? And no, from player to player. Okay, is his performance this season replicable into the next season? I don't think I have a lot of confidence in that either.
But it's
And
almost the exact same as last season. He's approaching math. What is math? 900 plate appearances of almost the exact same thing. 940 plate appearances.
so either he is what he is, and it's a quality, corner infielder who's worthy of an all-star, or he's as hot as it's going to get, and maybe you should trade him.
I'm very confident in Isaac's floor. I don't know how much better it's going to get or how much the home run power is going to stay. But the guy's only 25 years old. He's in
True.
arbitration now as a Super 2 player. He's inching very close to the Rays top 10 all-time home run list. I believe he's got to be 11th or 12th. He's at 66, and Rosarena's at 81 in 10th. So he's a guy, if you do
Randy's
keep
in the top
him
10.
for 1 or 2 more years, I mean, he'll be up there as one of the best power hitters in franchise history. I mean, I know the Rays are known for their long history of power hitters. But yeah, I don't know if when the magic is going to wear off, or maybe it won't. Maybe he is a unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that for this game, for this 3-game series, the Yankees, who know the Rays better than almost any other team, were completely unwilling to throw him anything that wasn't on the extreme outside bottom corner. So they definitely believe that there is danger in the zone to Isaac Paredes.
I see Isaac Paredes as having a very long big league career, and it might not be as an all-star third baseman. But I think the way you can move him around the infield, his selectiveness at the plate, that's the stuff that keeps you in the big leagues into your 30s. And the fact that he's only in his age 25 season, I mean, this might be the peak, and it's a good peak. You make an all-star team, right? But I don't know. Maybe this offseason, again, you've still got Yandy Diaz, you've still got Caminero and Curtis Mead and Carson Williams. I mean, the infield does start to get a little bit crowded. So, yeah, there might be an opportunity to move on from Paredes, but I'm a believer in Paredes long term. Any other final thoughts? Do we miss any news? We've done a solid hour here almost. Before we have the All-Star
So
break.
the only other news, there's a Immaculate Grid featured the Rays today. Was that right?
Oh,
Did you
I
guys
missed
see the
that.
chatter about this?
Yeah.
Per today's Immaculate Grid, Taylor J on Twitter, my favorite person on Ray's Twitter, who
And
doesn't
another
write for
Florida
D-Rays
State
Bay.
person.
Florida State alum. Taylor, if you're listening, I'm trying to get you to join D-Rays Bay. Come on in. She posted earlier today, per today's Immaculate Grid, who are the 6 Rays players with over 2,000 career hits? I hate putting people on the spot for these kinds of baseball stat questions, and we're live, so it's even worse. So please don't feel like pressured to get any of this right. I feel like being live adds pressure. I thought about it, and then I looked, and there was one I was never going to guess in a million years.
I feel pretty good about 3.
Okay, hit me with
6.
3 players with 2,000 career hits that played for the Rays.
Okay, Manny Ramirez, because that's who I used on my grid. Wade Boggs and Johnny Damon. Do we lose you? Am I right? Am I wrong? You cut out there.
Wade Boggs is correct.
Oh, okay. And Johnny Damon was my 3rd one.
Good job. So that's 3 of the 6.
Ian, can you close us out here? We're calling Fairbanks in.
I do not think I can.
There's another important player from that played with Wade Boggs, who's also a Hall of Famer.
Fred McGriff.
There's
one. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I was supposed to jump in there or not.
Oh.
No, I mean, you're welcome to. It's a brain teaser.
There's one more, right? We're looking for one more.
2 more.
2 more.
There's 2 more. One of them was a very recent player, and one of them is so random you're going to be very confused.
Is it Miguel Cairo, maybe?
It is not.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. He was traded for by the Rays because the Rays were looking for a mentor for a star shortstop prospect, and it did not work out, and they did not sign him to a long-term deal.
So it would have been Nelson Cruz.
Correct. Nelson Cruz has just over 2,000 career hits.
And did Carl Crawford sneak over the 2,000 mark?
No. In 1999, Julio Franco had exactly 1 plate appearance for the Devil Rays. And never in my life was I going to remember the one that he had a single plate appearance was as a strikeout in 1999. Nor do I think of him as somebody with 2,000 hits. So
Crawford finished 69 short.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
We couldn't get him a couple more there. That's tough.
And 2% of Immaculate Grid players got Julio Franco, and I bet you that Adam was one of those.
I will now that it's I don't think I'm spoiling Immaculate Grid at 10:45. Let's see if I can get this to focus. I went G-Man Choi for Rays Padres. I went Sean Camp for Rays Blue Jays, and then Manny Ramirez for Rays 2,000 hits.
The Manny Ramirez one feels gross, but whatever. It's 17 games. Okay, lightning round before we finish. Thing number 1, who would you consider the leader of the Rays from a clubhouse perspective? As an outside observer, you're watching TV. Who do you consider a leader? I have an interesting candidate for you that the radio was talking about today during the game.
Caballero was mic'd up today. He's vocal. I don't know if you can be a leader in your first season, but there's something there.
Kevin Kiermaier, extremely vocal immediately, and then immediately just considered a leader in the clubhouse because he could talk for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, Caballero, I think definitely exudes those leadership qualities. I think it's 2 very distinct, like the pitchers and the position players.
Yeah, they're different groups.
Maybe
position players is what I meant.
The pitchers are a bunch of white guys, and the position players aren't. But for position players, I do really think that Alex Jackson is respected there, and I think that's a reason why he's still on the team.
That's fair. Rays Radio was putting forth Josh Lowe as a rising leader in the clubhouse, really, really praising his attitude and approach to the game. In particular, he did not perform well in yesterday's game, and afterwards was really taking a lot of personal accountability for his own performance. And instead of being like, "Oh, it was a weird game," or "Oh, you know, um, we all need to do better," he was talking in such a way that was about a personal accountability, but was also like model behavior sort of way of talking, like that extreme ownership sort of perspective, that was viewed very positively by them, and they're of course extremely close to what's going on there. So really cool to hear that about Josh Lowe as a rising leader in the clubhouse. Lightning round number 2. How high is Brandon Lau's pain tolerance threshold for him to foul a ball off of his broken toe and then still continue base running?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Ran pretty fast too.
I immediately expected him to get pulled. Like, just let him go ice it.
I
Why
did
would
not
you
see the
just
play in question, but I don't know. I just get nervous anytime Brandon Lau is actually playing baseball, which
Yeah,
sucks. I really
it
like
was
when he is playing.
it was fouled hard. Like everyone except for Brandon Lau thought it was a ground ball in play because it was fouled hard off that toe.
I think your pain tolerance goes up when you've dealt with so many weird injuries, and you
Could
just
be.
cannot afford another IL stint without driving yourself crazy.
I haven't checked, but I hope there's a lefty on the mound tomorrow.
Well,
I haven't
it
checked.
might be one of those injuries that hurts a lot more tomorrow morning when he wakes up.
For sure.
So I hope. I mean, give him a day off. Give him a couple days off. Let him go into the All-Star break. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I don't think Cleveland's throwing any lefties at us. I think it's Carrasco tomorrow. So that's probably the one game you want Brandon Lau hitting second for. But yeah.
Well,
No,
let him
it
walk
was
to
tough.
first base.
Yeah.
Like it's an underhand pitch softball league. Just the old guys up there, they hit it and they walk to first base. All right, last lightning round question: Are the Rays good?
What a loaded question.
I know, that's why I did it last.
Yes.
We just say yes.
I will. I go ahead, Ian.
They're an average batting team. I think that they remain one of the league's top run prevention teams for the second half of the season, and that combination comes out to a good team. Probably not a great team, perhaps not a playoff team, but I think this year's Rays by the end of the season are solidly good.
Yeah. I think they're good. I think they are getting better. I still don't think they're good enough to compete for the big prizes this year or even to get in this year. I think it's going to be really tough. Not impossible, but really tough. Danny, what are your thoughts?
No, I don't think this is a good team. I think it's a transition year team. I think you got a lot of quality players, some of which that were drastically underperforming to start the year, and you need to right the ship for sure. And I think we've seen a lot of that righting of the ship. I mean, we talked about Yandy earlier. Randy's a good example of that as well. There was a lot of players underperforming, and they needed to get things under control. And at the same time, you had a ton of injuries, and on top of that, you need to be looking at who is on the future version of the Rays. Who's on the Rays in 2026? Now, okay, Yandy's not because his contract runs through 2025. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about like which prospects need to stay on their trajectories to the major league level. Junior Caminero is a good example of that. The Rays have a suite of high-end prospects ready to come up from the minors on the offensive side of the ball, and they've got a ton of injured pitchers who need to come back into the fold and get back to throwing in the rotation in the very near future. So I think it's an 80. You got a win total. What's the over under this year? Like 83.5. That still feels right.
It was around there, 82.5 at some books, 84.5 in that range.
Right. That's what this team is. I think that nailed it. It's a transition year team. You are hoping that you catch your sail catches on the wind at just the right time, and you can maybe sneak into that final wild card spot. And then at that point, it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. But trade deadline, I think you're more likely to trade away players that you have access looking at Zach Eflin and maybe Littell as well, because you want to bring other players into the fold. And I think that you're also, if you're acquiring, you're not doing major acquisitions. I don't think you need any big stopgaps like Civale. I don't think you need any big boppers like Nelson Cruz. Like if you're adding anything, you're looking for like a David DeJesus level trade acquisition. Not that they need that; they've got the depth. So what would the Rays add at this point?
I think they're going to go into the deadline with the same mindset they had in 2018. I don't think they're going to pull off a Chris Archer trade, but my hope is that maybe they pull off a Tommy Pham trade, not a trade for, not trading for Tommy Pham, but in the model of the 2018 Tommy Pham trade when they first acquired him. Where they found two prospects that had some interesting qualities, but definitely didn't have a path to the big leagues, and found a guy with multiple years of control that needs a change of scenery. And if anybody will do business with them on that, I think something could happen.
Yeah, you're always looking for that, right? You're always looking to, you've got the players who are going to become Rule 5 eligible, and there's a 40-man crunch. And so at any given time, if you can move those players, they're available for conversation. And also, I think if there's opportunities for the Rays to consolidate assets and maybe turn like a couple different position players into like one better position player, I think that's what you really mean. That's great. I think Ahmed Rosario is an interesting trade candidate.
I think
he doesn't cost much.
He's an extremely tradable player. He's the type of player that playoff teams are looking to add at the deadline. I don't think the Rays, even if they think they're a potential playoff team, would be shy about shopping him. And I think he signed with full knowledge that was a possibility as well. But I mean, every time we talk about improving the Rays, every year I feel like we're having the same conversation, which is that the floor is pretty high across the roster. It's actually decently difficult to improve outside of backup catcher, and so like, yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a trade to fix this, but I still think that this is this to me is not a team that is meaningfully worse than Arizona last year, which was really close to winning the World Series. And like, I don't think the Rays are going to blow up that 15%, according to Fangraph playoff odds chance. But if they want to lower it from 15 to 12 by a trade, then I don't think they'll be shy about that either.
They're just one Evan Longoria away from being the 2023 Arizona Diamondbacks.
You move Ahmed Rosario, you have room for a right-handed bench bat. It's right there.
All right. Great episode, guys. That is going to do it for this week's episode of Raise Your Voice. Big thank you to Ian Malinowski and Danny Russell for taking the time to hop in and fill in for Darby Robinson, who is, I think, somewhere cruising the Mediterranean, having a great time this summer. But if you like what we do, make sure to leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure, if you're not already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/raiseyourvoice. Like this video and turn on those notifications so you can join us whenever we go live. If you really want to say thank you, patreon.com/raiseyourvoice, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. As always, make sure to head on over to draysbay.com to check out all of that great Rays coverage. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.